2 years ago, it had started with kindness. Emily Jones had been walking alone in the rain, holding a torn handbag dressed in simple clothes. She looked lost. Most people passed by without a glance, but not Logan or Kocha. Logan had stopped his car, stepped out, and offered her a ride. "Are you okay?" he asked with concern. She smiled softly. Just trying to get home. That simple moment changed everything. Emily looked like a poor woman. No makeup, no designer shoes, just calm eyes and a gentle voice. Logan saw her as someone who needed help, and Emily didn't correct him. Not then, not even later. She didn't tell him that she was Emily Jones, daughter of Robert Jones, the richest man in Africa. Instead, she let Logan believe she was ordinary, and in that belief, he felt like her savior, the strong man who gave her shelter, love, and a name. He asked her to marry him after 6 months of dating, promising to protect her and build a beautiful life together. Emily agreed, not because she needed protection, but because she loved how real it felt. She loved Logan's ambition, his dreams, his passion for business. But most of all, she loved the way he smiled at her as if she mattered, even when the world ignored her. Now, 2 years later, Emily stood in the quiet living room of their home, carefully ironing Logan's shirts. The walls were lined with framed certificates, all of Logan's achievements in the business world. Many of them had come after she silently made a few calls, pulled a few strings. He didn't know. Logan had no idea that the investors who believed in him had done so because of Emily's quiet whispers in the background. He didn't know that the bank loans were approved because her family name opened doors even if she never once mentioned it. She never told him. Because Emily didn't want Logan to feel small. She wanted him to feel strong, like he earned everything himself. She stayed in the shadows, clapping for him when he got the applause. But tonight, as she folded his last shirt, something inside her felt different. Not sad, not angry, just tired. Logan had been coming home later than usual. He had started dressing better, speaking more sharply, smiling less at her. Emily brushed off the thoughts. "He's just busy," she told herself. "He's building something. I'm proud of him." She stood by the window and watched the city lights. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman who gave everything and asked for nothing. Just love, just honesty, just the man who once stopped for her in the rain. But instead, they drifted further apart. It started with a phone call. Logan Okocha came home late that night, his smile wide and full of excitement. He dropped his suit jacket on the chair and walked quickly to the living room, where Emily was folding clothes. "We got it," he said, almost breathless. "Emily, I did it. I secured the contract." Emily looked up. "What contract?" she said, feigning surprise. "The Jones International deal," he said, nearly shouting. $1 million, Em. Can you believe it? This changes everything." Emily's hands paused, her heart soft in her chest. She could believe it, because she had made it happen. Earlier that week, when she saw how hard Logan was working, how close he was, yet how far she had picked up the phone and called her father. "Daddy, I need a favor," she had said gently. There was silence on the line before her father, Robert Jones, spoke. "So, you remember I didn't want you to marry a poor man, yes?" Emily closed her eyes. "I remember, Daddy. But you also said you'd let me make my own choices." Robert sighed. "I did. And you also promised me something." "I know. I said I'd come back home after 2 years, and I will. But for now, can you help him? Please." There was another pause. Then came his reply. "If he matters to you, then that's all I need to know." He didn't ask questions. He didn't say more. And just like that, the deal had been done quietly, without Logan knowing. A $1 million contract. A dream come true. Now Logan stood in front of her, chest puffed, grinning proudly. "This is the beginning," he said. "Everything's changing now. We're on a whole new level." Emily smiled softly. "I'm happy for you, Logan. Truly." She meant it, because she was. She didn't tell him about her role in the deal. Not yet. She had planned to wait until their second wedding anniversary, just a few weeks away. She wanted the moment to be perfect, a night where she would finally open her heart, reveal the truth, and share her world with him. But things didn't go as planned. After that deal, Logan changed. At first, it was small things. He came home later. He started dressing like he was going to a magazine cover shoot every day. His phone buzzed more, and he laughed at things he never shared with her. And then came the coldness. Stopped noticing when she looked tired. Stopped listening when she talked about her work. He began to say things like, "You wouldn't understand how high-level deals work. This world is moving fast now. A poor person like you will never understand." Emily stayed quiet, watching the man she loved drift away. Then one night, as they sat quietly in the living room, he mentioned a new name. "Jessica's been introducing me to some amazing people lately. She's very connected." Emily blinked. "Jessica," he nodded. "She's helped me a lot since the deal. Seems like she has ties to the Jones Company. I believe she pulled some strings to get me that contract. So many other much more influential companies were bidding for the deal, but I got it because of her." Emily felt her throat tighten but said nothing. She didn't know much about this Jessica yet, but something in Logan's tone made her uneasy. It wasn't just respect, it was admiration, a kind of excitement he no longer showed at home. That night, she stood in the bathroom, brushing her hair slowly, looking at her reflection. "Just a few more days," she whispered to herself. "After the anniversary, he'll know everything. And maybe he'll understand why I hid it." About 2 weeks later, Emily stood in front of the mirror, fixing the soft curls of her hair. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress, the one Logan had once said made her look like a princess. Tonight was their second wedding anniversary, and he had invited her to dinner at a luxurious rooftop cafe in the city. The message had been short. "Let's have dinner tonight. Just the two of us." Emily's heart had skipped. Maybe he wants to start over, she had thought. Maybe he remembered what today means. She looked at herself one last time before stepping out. Her dress was modest, her jewelry was simple, but her heart was full of hope. When she arrived at the cafe, Logan was already there, dressed in a black suit, sipping wine. He didn't stand up. He didn't smile. But Emily ignored the cold welcome and sat across from him, her smile warm. "Happy anniversary, Logan." He looked at her for a long moment, then placed his glass down. "Emily," he began, his voice sharp and flat. "Let's stop pretending." Her smile faded slowly. "Pretending? I didn't bring you here to celebrate," he said. "I brought you here to talk about what comes next. For me, not us." Emily blinked. I don't understand." Logan sighed like he was tired. "You're not part of my world anymore. I've outgrown you." She stared at him, frozen. "I've been meeting people, real people, people with class, with connections I need for my business, people who understand business and image," he went on. "Jessica, for example." Emily's heart stopped. "Jessica? She's the daughter of the Jones family, the one behind my big deal," he said confidently. "She's everything I need now, elegant, smart, well-connected." Emily opened her mouth, but no words came. Her eyes were already glassy. "My mum also thinks the same. In fact, she has been pressuring me to divorce you for a long time now," Logan continued. "She agrees. You never fit in. You never really belonged in this life." And then came the words that broke her. "You're not my class anymore." The same man who once stopped in the rain to help her now sat before her, cold and proud, looking through her like she was nothing. She had known his mother never liked her, but she didn't know it was this bad. He stood up. "You'll get the divorce papers in a few days. Let's not make this messier than it has to be." And just like that, he walked out. Emily sat there, her heart shattered. The waiter came and asked if she wanted to order. She shook her head, unable to speak. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held them back, sitting in silence while the world around her moved on. She had worn that dress thinking he would hold her again. She had come with a heart full of truth, ready to tell him everything. But instead, he had chosen a lie. Minutes passed. The chair across from her stayed empty. Then, from the corner of her eye, A man in a navy suit approached slowly. He was tall, calm, handsome, and had a kind face. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Is this seat taken?" Emily looked up confused. "I saw what happened. I didn't mean to intrude," he said, sitting down slowly. "My name is Daniel Stevens, CEO of Stevens Group." He extended his hand with quiet confidence. Emily shook it, trying to gather her thoughts. "I need someone," he said softly, "to help me avoid an arranged marriage to a woman I don't even know. A Jones heiress, apparently. My family keeps pushing it. And well, I have another idea." Emily stared at him, still stunned. Did he just say Jones Group? Is this the same Daniel her family had mentioned? "I'd like to offer you a deal," Daniel continued. "A 1-year marriage contract. I'll pay you well. You'll play the role of my wife, that's all. When the time is up, we part ways, no pressure, no expectations." Emily blinked. "Now this is interesting," she thought to herself, then said, "Why me?" He smiled faintly. "Because you look like someone who needs a way out. And honestly, so do I." He didn't explain all the details. Not about Madame Jones, not about the real heiress returning soon, not yet. But something about his voice felt calm, safe. Emily sat quietly, her hands trembling. Hours ago, she had come hoping for love. Now she was offered something very different, a second chance at dignity, even if it came through a contract. The night had not gone as she thought it would. Instead of love, she had been handed heartbreak. Across from her sat Daniel Stevens, the kind stranger who had witnessed everything, making a ridiculous but strangely interesting offer. His voice was calm and low. "I know this is sudden, but I won't waste your time." She didn't answer right away. Her heart was still broken and her mind was spinning. But at that moment, Daniel didn't push. He only said, "Take your time. My offer still stands for the next 24 hours. Here is my number," he said as he handed her his card. They stood and walked out together, two strangers with silent stories. Before parting, Emily nodded once. "If I agree, I'll let you know tomorrow." Daniel replied, "I'll wait." The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Emily opened it slowly, only to see Logan Okocha standing tall in a crisp suit, and right beside him, dressed like she was heading to a fashion magazine cover, stood Jessica, his mistress. Logan held out a brown envelope. "Let's not drag this out, Emily. Sign the papers." Emily didn't move. Jessica let out a mocking laugh. "You live in this tiny flat? I expected at least some class after being a good stay-at-home wife." Emily looked at her calmly, but said nothing. She didn't have time to exchange words with an imposter. Jessica stepped inside, looked around the simple home, and smirked. "No wonder Logan got tired of you. Look at this place, no taste, no elegance. You really thought you could keep up with him?" Logan crossed his arms. "This isn't personal. It's just reality. I've moved on, and you should too." Jessica rolled her eyes. "He did you a favor, sweetie. Letting you go before you embarrassed him even more? I mean, come on. You don't belong in his world." Emily's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Jessica leaned in with a cruel smile. "Don't cry now. Maybe you can work as a maid in my house. At least you'll be useful for once." Emily didn't look up. She picked up the pen, took a deep breath, and signed the divorce papers without a word. Jessica gave a fake pout. "Oh, poor little thing. No ring, no riches, no name." Logan took the envelope back and turned to leave. Jessica called out as she walked out the door, "Maybe next time dress like someone who matters." The door closed. Emily stood alone. She sat on the edge of her bed, the silence thick and heavy, but she didn't cry, not this time. Instead, she picked up her phone and typed a simple message. "I'm ready." Later that day, she met Daniel at the city registry office. The air was clean, the space quiet. They stood side by side and signed the papers. The clerk congratulated them, unaware of the truth. They were now husband and wife. A marriage by name. Nothing more. "I guess we're married now," Daniel said with a small smile. Emily gave a faint nod, Looks like it. He didn't ask who she really was, and she didn't tell him. Before they parted ways, Daniel said gently, "Call me when you need me." "And you too," Emily replied. They walked away, two people with secrets, two hearts carrying heavy weight. But instead of going back home to her powerful father, to the world where she was the real heiress, Emily vanished. She packed only what she needed and disappeared from public life. And from that quiet disappearance, a new name was born. Eleanor. A whisper in the fashion world. A mystery. Her designs were bold, rich in color and soul, crafted with hands that had known pain. People noticed. Magazines asked questions, buyers made offers, but her face stayed hidden. Then came Stonebridge Group, a big business firm that saw her potential and offered to invest. They didn't ask for her story. They only believed in her work. And just like that, her brand grew very fast. But even as Eleanor's name spread through the world of fashion, Emily knew her story wasn't over. Because lies don't stay hidden forever, and neither do the truth. Just a few months after her contract marriage with Daniel, the city was buzzing with excitement. A grand fashion gala was being hosted by none other than the Stevens Group, and every major name in the industry was attending. Designers, investors, celebrities, everyone wanted to be there. But most of all, everyone wanted to see Eleanor, the mysterious fashion designer who had taken the industry by storm. No one knew what she looked like. No one had ever seen her face. But her clothes were unforgettable. In the middle of all the attention stood Jessica Gray, dressed in an overly dramatic gown that sparkled under the lights. Her lips were painted deep red, and her smile was wide as she posed for photos beside Logan Okocha. For weeks now, Jessica had been lying, telling people she was the secretive Eleanor the heiress who had taken over the fashion world. So tonight, as cameras clicked and questions flew, Jessica just smiled and said softly, "I prefer to let the work speak for itself." Logan stood proudly beside her, thinking this was it, the big moment. People believed he was married to the greatest designer alive. Investors gathered around, offering compliments and handshakes. "This is huge for your company, Logan," someone whispered. "You have managed to associate yourself with a legend," another said. And Logan believed it all. What he didn't know was that the real Eleanor had just walked into the gala. Emily Jones, dressed in a simple yet elegant black gown, stepped into the hall quietly beside Daniel Stevens. Daniel had invited her personally. "Come as my guest," he had said. "No pressure." Emily had agreed, not to be seen, but to watch, to listen, to see how far the lies had gone. As she entered, eyes turned toward her, not in admiration, but in judgment. People whispered, "Who is she? Why would Daniel bring someone like that? Is that the same girl Logan divorced?" And then came Logan's mother. She walked straight up to Emily and gave her a sharp look. "You again? Still clinging to events that aren't your level?" Before Emily could reply, Jessica arrived, laughing sweetly. "Emily," Jessica said loudly, "you should have told me you were coming. I would have sent you one of my dresses to wear, something actually stylish." People around them laughed. Emily looked at Logan, her heart calm but firm. "Logan," she said softly, "she's lying. Jessica is not Eleanor. She's not the heiress. She's not behind any of those designs." Logan chuckled, clearly amused. "Oh, really? And if she's not the real one, what are you, Emily? A bitter ex-wife?" Emily swallowed hard. Daniel stepped forward. "That's enough," he said firmly. "She's here with me. Show some respect." But even Daniel's words didn't stop the whispers. Daniel's family, including his mother and some relatives, stood by the corner, staring coldly at Emily. "That's the girl he married," one aunt muttered. "She doesn't even belong here," another said. "Madam Linda Jones won't like this at all," his mother added. Emily stood still, trying to hold her head high. She had faced worse. She had been laughed at before. But tonight, something inside her was beginning to shift. She was no longer the woman hoping to be accepted. She was the woman they were all pretending to be. The fashion event had ended with loud applause and flashing cameras. Jessica stood on stage, smiling as people clapped for the designs she had claimed as hers. But behind the stage curtain, the real artist Emily Jones, the true Eleanor, stayed silent. She watched, not with anger, but with calm strength. That night, Daniel walked her to the car quietly. The stars were bright, but her heart felt heavy. "I know that wasn't easy," he said, opening the door for her. Emily looked at him. "You stood up for me, even when your family didn't." Daniel smiled softly. "They'll get over it. I trust what I see, and I see you." His words settled deep in her chest. No one had ever said that to her before, not without conditions. Not even Logan. Most people looked at her and saw what she wasn't. Daniel looked at her and saw who she was becoming. Over the next few weeks, Daniel stayed close. He invited her to private meetings, gala nights, and quiet dinners, not because he had to, but because he wanted her there. People around him whispered, "You could have anyone. Why her? Leave her before your image suffers." Even his mother called him one afternoon, her voice sharp. "She's not from our world, Daniel. You're making a mistake." But Daniel didn't care. He stood by Emily every step of the way. And Emily? She tried to resist it at first. Her heart was still bruised, her past still burned. But slowly, Daniel's honesty, his steady presence, and the way he never tried to change her began to soften the walls she had built around her heart. One night, after dinner, she smiled at him a little longer than usual. "Why are you really doing all this?" she asked. Daniel looked at her and said, "Because you're not pretending to be perfect. You're just real. I am tired of those spoiled, rich heiresses with designer clothes and fake smiles." That night, Emily lay awake in bed. For the first time in a long time, she felt something close to hope. But while love was growing in quiet places, trouble was brewing elsewhere. Mark Stevens, Daniel's younger stepbrother, had always felt left out. He watched as Daniel rose in power and status now with a new wife, a growing fashion empire, and praise from everyone. Mark burned with jealousy. And when he found out who Daniel had married, a divorcee, someone from a low-status background, instead of the daughter of the richest man, he saw his chance. "This is how I bring him down," Mark whispered to himself. He began leaking fake documents to the media, anonymous sources, false claims, fake screenshots. He hinted that Daniel did not care about the company image and had married a nobody, that he didn't respect the investors and did not care about the company. He even sent files to the Jones Group, warning them that Daniel's poor nobody wife was a liability. Meetings were cancelled. Calls went unanswered. Daniel noticed the sudden change in the business world, and so did Emily. "I think someone's trying to break us," he said one morning, holding the latest news article in his hand. "And I think I know who." Meanwhile, far away, in a quiet estate, Robert Jones sat by his window reading the same headlines. He didn't say a word. He simply folded the newspaper and looked outside, thinking. His daughter had left his home 2 years ago to live a simple life, to marry a man he never approved of and to chase a dream he never understood. Now the world was turning against her, and he wanted to see, would she crumble? Or would she rise on her own? The headlines weren't slowing down. "Who is Daniel Stevens' wife really? Marriage to unknown divorcee scares off investors." Inside the boardroom of Stevens' group, the air was tense. Emily sat beside Daniel, calm on the outside, but inside, she was holding it all in. Across from them sat men and women in stiff suits, eyes cold, voices quiet, but judgment thick in the air. And at the end of the long table sat Mark Stevens, Daniel's younger stepbrother, leaning back with a crooked smile. He was proud of what he had done. Contacted investors, warning them that Daniel had married a woman with no pedigree, a poor divorcee with no business background, a shame to the Stevens name. Now he was ready to finish the job. Mark stood up slowly, hands folded. "As we all know, image matters in this industry, and I believe Daniel's recent choices are hurting the company." He looked straight at Daniel. "I suggest we replace him as the CEO." Emily opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say a word, the chairman's assistant stepped into the room, whispering something into the chairman's ear. The chairman nodded. We've just received a statement from two of our biggest investors. He cleared his throat and read aloud. After thorough review, Stonebridge Group and Jones International have decided to continue full financial support for Stevens Group. We advise the board to focus on performance, not personal matters. Gasps filled the room. Even Daniel looked surprised. Emily blinked. She hadn't contacted them herself, but they had acted anyway quietly, from behind the scenes. She knew what this meant. Her father, Robert Jones, and Adrian Stone of Stonebridge Group were watching, supporting her silently, trusting her to stand tall on her own, without revealing who she really was. Mark's face turned pale. He stepped forward in a panic. That doesn't change the fact that Daniel married a pauper to tint our image. The chairman raised a hand. Enough, Mark. Another board member spoke. If two of the most powerful firms are standing behind this marriage, then so are we. Daniel placed his hand gently over Emily's. She didn't flinch this time. Mark was voted out, suspended from the company until further notice. As people began to leave the room, Daniel turned to her. We didn't ask for help, but someone out there still believes in us, he said. Emily nodded, her voice steady. Although this is just a contact marriage, thank you for always supporting me. He smiled. No, you shouldn't say that. I should be the one thanking you for going all through this mess with me. Deep inside, Emily felt something shift. She hadn't used her name. She hadn't waved her identity like a flag. She had simply stood her ground, and for the first time the world didn't break her, it backed off. Across town, Logan Okocha stood proudly at a press conference, holding Jessica's hand. Cameras flashed, people clapped. This, Logan said to the crowd, is the woman behind the Eleanor brand, the genius designer, the heiress from the Jones family. Jessica smiled sweetly, not saying a word to correct him. Investors praised them. Journalists chased them. Everyone believed the lie. Logan looked at Jessica and thought he had everything. But the real Eleanor, the one he threw away, had just taken her first real step into power. And soon the world would learn the truth, one stitch, one show, one reveal at a time. Soon it was time for the International Fashion Showcase, the biggest event of the year where the world's top designers came to shine. Everyone who was anyone would be there: investors, celebrities, fashion critics, and journalists from around the world. For weeks, the spotlight had been fixed on one name: Eleanor, the mysterious designer who no one had ever seen. Jessica continued to take full advantage of that mystery. She wore Eleanor's designs like she created them. She gave quiet, mysterious interviews. She let people believe she was the one behind the magic, and she even signed several endorsement deals with Eleanor's identity. Logan Okocha stood proudly beside her, convinced that his choice had paid off. This is our night, he told Jessica as they arrived at the grand venue. Everyone will know you're the real queen of fashion. But that night was not going to go the way they thought. Inside the hall, people gathered, lights flickered, music played. The show was moments away from starting. And then the entrance doors opened, and Emily Jones walked in. She wore a graceful, elegant black gown. Her hair was swept back, her chin lifted high. There was a small pin on her shoulder, the Eleanor logo, shining in gold. People turned, eyes widened. Daniel Stevens stood beside her, silent, confident, proud. Logan's smile froze. Jessica's hand clenched. Emily walked straight to the center of the stage, calm, quiet, powerful. The host leaned into the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, before tonight's final show, we have an announcement from the Eleanor brand. Emily stepped forward. Her voice was clear, soft, but strong. My name is Emily Jones, she began, and I am the designer behind the Eleanor brand. Gasps echoed around the room. Some whispered, others stared. Jessica took a step forward, laughing nervously. She's lying, I'm Eleanor, everyone knows that. Emily didn't even flinch. She opened her handbag and pulled out a small folder. Here are the original sketches, dated and signed, in my handwriting. Here are signed contracts with Stonebridge Group. And here, she said as two staff walked onto the stage, are my team members, people who worked with me from the beginning, who were paid by me, not Jessica. Jessica's face turned red. One of the staff members stepped forward. "I was hired by Emily. I never met Jessica until she came pretending to be our boss." More gasps. The host looked stunned. "Is this true?" Emily nodded. "She lied. To all of you, here is my signature on one of my original designs." A reporter in the crowd shouted, "And you're the real Eleanor?" Emily looked directly into the cameras. "I am." Silence fell. Then came the flashing of cameras, the buzz of voices, the sound of sponsors pulling away from Jessica in an instant. Jessica tried to speak. "Logan, say something!" But Logan just stared. He had believed in a lie. Walked in front of the cameras, boasted, mocked. Now he stood frozen, humiliated in front of the world. Sponsors left. Reporters turned away. The lights no longer followed Jessica. Emily didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She simply stepped off the stage, handed the mic back, and walked away, head held high. Outside the venue, under the night sky, Daniel caught up to her. "Wow, so you are the real Eleanor," he said. "Yes," she replied. "Are you disappointed it's me?" He nodded. "No, Em. I am very proud of you. I always knew you were brilliant." She smiled softly. "You never doubted me, even when you didn't know who I was." Daniel looked into her eyes. "Because I didn't care who you were. I cared what you were: strong, kind, talented, and real." Emily felt something warm in her chest, a feeling that didn't rush in like fire but settled gently like light. They stood there, side by side, no pressure, no performance. Just two people, beginning to matter to each other. The world now knew the truth. Emily Jones was Eleanor, the quiet woman they once looked down on, the genius behind the most celebrated design. The moment her identity became public, everything changed. Critics who once whispered now praised her boldly. Blogs that called her unfit now called her iconic. The same investors who hesitated now lined up, hoping for a seat at her table. But Emily didn't rush to speak. She didn't seek revenge or loud victory. Instead, she used her moment to show the world what real power looked like. One by one, she sent out gifts. Not for attention, but for impact. First came a stunning surprise to Miss Janet, her old literature teacher from high school, the woman who once gave her a free notebook and encouraged her to stick to what she liked no matter what the world said. A $10 million penthouse, fully paid for. "For the woman who taught me that words can carry dreams," the card read. Miss Janet wept when the news broke. She never forgot. Next was a velvet box sent to Mrs. Judith Daniels, Daniel's mother, a wealthy socialite who once called Emily a nobody trying to fit in by attaching to the rich. Inside was a 6-carat diamond brooch from the Eleanor exclusive collection. The note said, "Because being kind is always more beautiful than being rich." The final gesture shook the entire industry. Emily donated the original Da Vinci textile manuscript, a priceless treasure, to the National Fashion Museum. Her public statement read, "Let this piece remind us all, fashion belongs to the world, not just the wealthy." The media called her the Queen of Quiet Power, but not everyone was celebrating. Logan Okocha sat in his office, staring at the pile of rejected contracts on his desk. Phones that once rang every minute now sat cold and silent. His inbox was filled with investor withdrawal notices. His company stock was falling faster than he could stop it. Jessica burst into the room, makeup smudged, her phone shaking in her hand. "They dropped me! All of them! Even the magazine cover!" Logan stood up, his face pale. "You lied to me! You said you were the heiress! You said you were Eleanor!" Jessica snapped. "You believed what you wanted to believe. I gave you attention, status." "No," Logan cut her off. "You gave me shame." He stepped back like he could finally see her clearly for the first time. "You're not Eleanor. You're not an heiress. You're just a fraud." Jessica's mouth dropped open. But before she could speak again, Logan said quietly, "Get out. I want nothing to do with you." She left, slamming the door behind her. Days later, as Emily walked out of a meeting with the board of the Fashion Hall of Fame, she found Logan waiting by her car. He looked thinner, tired, like the world had finally stopped spinning for him. "Emily," he said softly. Please. Just 5 minutes. She didn't answer but stood still, letting him speak. I was wrong, he said, eyes watery. I didn't see you. I didn't know what I had. I chose the wrong path, the wrong person. But I never stopped thinking about you. Emily looked at him, not in anger, not even in sadness, just with a steady calm. You left me for a lie, she said quietly. I became a legacy. Logan swallowed hard. I can't undo it, he whispered. But if there's any part of your heart left for me, there isn't, Emily said gently but firmly. She got into her car, the door closing softly behind her. As the car pulled away, Logan stood alone on the sidewalk, his company crumbling, his pride shattered, and his past walking away with more dignity than he ever gave her. And Emily? She was no longer the girl waiting to be loved. She was the woman the world now remembered not for her pain, but for how beautifully she rose from it. It should have been a time of celebration. Emily Jones, now publicly known as Eleanor, the genius designer, the quiet queen of fashion, had captured the world's heart. Her face was on magazine covers, her words quoted in interviews, her brand soaring beyond borders. But in the shadows, two broken people burned with anger. Mark Stevens, still bitter from being kicked out of Stevens' group, couldn't sleep. His pride was shattered, his reputation was damaged beyond repair. And Jessica, rejected by Logan and dropped by every sponsor, blamed only one person, Emily. She humiliated me, Jessica snapped. She stole the spotlight. Mark leaned back, his eyes dark. She took everything from both of us. Then came the plan. Dark, cruel, desperate. They would kidnap Emily, silence her, and destroy her image once and for all. One cloudy afternoon, Emily was leaving a quiet charity event when two masked men grabbed her near the parking lot. A black van, a blindfold. Silence. She woke up hours later in an abandoned warehouse tied to a chair. Jessica stepped forward, her lipstick smudged, her eyes filled with hate. Let's see how powerful you feel now, Miss Eleanor. Mark stood behind her, smirking. You should have stayed quiet, Emily. In a private estate far from the city, Robert Jones was reading the paper when the news reached him. His assistant rushed in, phone shaking in hand. Sir, it's Miss Emily. She's been kidnapped. The room went silent. His heart stopped for just a moment. He called a press conference immediately. Cameras flashed. The world watched. I want to make something clear, Robert said, voice shaking but firm. Emily Jones is my daughter. She is not just Eleanor. She is the blood of the Jones family, and anyone who harms her has declared war on me. The media exploded. Headlines flashed. Eleanor is the daughter of Africa's richest man. Robert Jones declares war on Emily's enemies. Daniel Stevens, watching the news from his office, stood frozen. Her father is Robert Jones, he whispered. Everything made sense now, the way she moved through the world, her strength, her silence. She had been powerful all along and never said a word. Daniel dropped everything and joined the search. Across town, Logan Okocha sat in front of his TV, his mouth open. His mother, sitting beside him, covered her face in shame. We threw away a diamond, his mother admitted, for a piece of stone. From abroad, a private jet landed. A tall woman in fine clothes stepped out, sharp eyes, firm walk. Mrs. Jones, Emily's mother, had returned. She's been quiet for too long, she told reporters. My daughter gave her heart to the wrong people. I won't let her live a simple, hidden life anymore. It's time she takes her place where she belongs, at the top. Back in the warehouse, Mark held a phone in his hand. Let's finish this, he told Jessica. It's too late now. You're quiet now, she said bitterly. Where's your grace? Where's your power? Emily said nothing. Jessica raised a hand to slap Emily, who sat bruised but unshaken. Just as her hand rose, the door slammed open. Daniel stormed in, eyes blazing. Get away from her, he shouted. Step away from her now. Jessica froze. Mark tried to run but was grabbed immediately. Daniel rushed to Emily, gently cutting the ropes, holding her tightly. Are you hurt? He asked, voice shaking. Emily nodded weakly. You found me. I always will. He wrapped his arms around her carefully, holding her close. She leaned into him, weak but safe, the storm around her finally breaking. The morning after the rescue,
headlines screamed with new energy. Jessica Gray and Mark Stevens arrested in failed kidnapping of Eleanor, daughter of Africa's richest man, rescued by CEO husband in dramatic raid. Emily Jones, more than a designer, a survivor. Both Mark and Jessica were led out in handcuffs, faces pale and silent, surrounded by flashing cameras and angry voices. Their mugshots trended online, and for the first time, no one wanted to hear their side of the story. At the hospital, Daniel sat quietly beside Emily's bed, watching her sleep. The doctors had treated her minor injuries, a few bruises, sore wrists, and dehydration. Nothing too serious, but enough to break anyone's spirit. But not Emily's. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Daniel, smiling softly, holding her hand. "You're safe now," he whispered. Her voice was weak but full of feeling. "Thank you for coming." "I always will," he replied. Just then the door opened, and Robert and Mrs. Jones entered. They didn't rush to her, didn't cry loudly. They simply stood at her side, full of emotion. Her mother gently touched her cheek, brushing her hair back. "My baby," she whispered. "No more hiding. No more living a simple, modest life." Her father nodded, eyes misty. "You made me proud, Emily. Even when you didn't use our name, you carried our values." Emily reached for their hands and held them tight. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to choose between being herself and being a Jones. She could be both. Later that day, Daniel accompanied her out of the hospital. As they got into the car, he glanced at her with a playful smile. "So," he said teasingly, "any other secret identities I should know about? Princess, spy, queen of some other country?" Emily laughed a light, beautiful laugh and shook her head. "No," she smiled. "That's all. Just me now." He looked at her, still amazed. "That's more than enough." A few days later, the Jones family hosted a grand public ceremony, streamed live to the world. The venue was filled with leaders, creatives, and the people who had once looked down on Emily, now seated at the back, humbled and quiet. When Emily walked onto the stage, dressed in an elegant white and gold gown, the crowd rose to their feet. Robert stepped forward and took the mic. "Today, we are not just introducing Eleanor. We are introducing the woman who showed us that identity is not in what you say, but in how you live." He turned to her and said with pride, "Meet my daughter, Emily Jones." The hall shook with applause. But before the ceremony ended, someone stood up. Daniel's mother. Her face was tearful. "I was wrong," she said. "I judged you. Please forgive me." Behind her, other family members, cousins, aunties, even business partners all echoed the same words. "We're sorry." Emily stepped forward, her voice soft but strong. "I forgive you," she said. "But let this be a lesson. We must not judge people based on money or background. All human beings are equal. Kindness matters. Dignity matters. And the ones we overlook today might be the ones we need tomorrow." There was a long pause. Then, applause, not just polite, but loud, heartfelt, real. At that moment, Emily wasn't just Eleanor. She wasn't just a Jones. She was a voice for every person who had ever been looked down on. And she stood tall with grace, power, and forgiveness. The sky over the city glowed gold as the sun began to set. Months had passed since the world discovered who Emily Jones truly was. And now she stood stronger than ever, not because of her last name, not because of her fame, but because she had finally embraced every part of herself. Her fashion brand, Eleanor, had grown into one of the most respected design houses in the world. Orders flooded in from across continents. Young designers looked up to her. She gave scholarships, mentored girls in villages and cities, and never stopped living with quiet purpose. And by her side, through it all, was Daniel Stevens. They no longer lived by a contract. There were no more lies, no more roles to play. Just truth, just friendship, just love growing, steady, real. One evening, after a fashion gala in Paris, Daniel walked with Emily under the soft city lights. The street was quiet, the breeze warm. She held his hand and he kept glancing at her like he was searching for the perfect moment. Then, without warning, he stopped and turned to face her. "No contracts," he said softly. "No pretending, no more holding back.
He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emily gasped. Daniel opened it. Inside was a simple but stunning ring, a custom design inspired by the Eleanor brand logo woven into soft gold. "Emily Jones," he said, his voice full of emotion. "Will you marry me, for real this time?" Tears welled in her eyes. She smiled, the kind of smile that came from deep inside, and nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Daniel." Their wedding was a masterpiece. Held at a private island resort decorated with white orchids and soft candlelight, it was filled with family, friends, and those who had stood with them through every storm. Emily wore a gown she designed herself, elegant, graceful, and unlike anything the fashion world had ever seen. Her father walked her down the aisle, proud and peaceful. Her mother cried softly, holding Daniel's mother's hand. Two women once divided, now joined in joy. And Daniel? He stood at the altar, heart full, watching the woman who had started as a mystery and become the love of his life. They said their vows beneath the sky, their hands joined, their hearts open. "I choose you," Daniel said. "And I choose you," Emily replied. "Every day, every version of you, always." Far in the distance, standing quietly behind a crowd, was Logan Okocha. He wore a plain suit now. No cameras followed him. No reporters asked for comments. He watched silently as the woman he once abandoned walked down the aisle, loved, respected, and truly happy. His mother stood beside him, holding his arm. She whispered, "You lost a diamond for glitter that couldn't last." Logan didn't reply, because he finally understood. He had chosen appearances over love, power over character. And in the end, he lost everything chasing illusions. Now all he could do was watch as Emily Jones, the girl he once left, became a queen in her own story. As the sun set over the island and the music rose, Daniel and Emily danced under the stars. Not as strangers, not as partners on paper, but as soulmates brought together not by luck but by loyalty, truth, and the quiet courage of two hearts that refused to give up. And so, the girl the world once overlooked became the woman the world would never forget.